Hi, with the recent equine therapy, I'm getting a lot of requests about how do we do the 5 steps to success for a horse ranch or equine therapy? And that's an excellent question because it leads me to the 5 steps to success for nonprofits. So you can use the 5 steps to really help you have a strategic way to develop your volunteers, and it will save money. Plus, it will also help your volunteers feel more valuable because they're adding a whole lot more value if they have a more strategic program. So we'll go over the 5 steps using the equine therapy, using the horse ranch, which is one of the ones that I would actually love to do myself. So happy to do this one. So we're going to share the 5 steps for nonprofits using a volunteer development program, a very simple program that we could use for equine therapy. So the first step, we actually already did that with step 1 when we did the orientation with the equine therapy. So you're really just developing a welcoming environment to get them oriented, and they're learning tasks that they can help with, just things that they can learn in a half hour, maybe an hour. But then they're learning those tasks so that then the more experienced people within your nonprofit, they can take that on for you. So an example of it would be, they, by just being there for a half hour, we learned, the basics of equine therapy that we could share with others. So if other guests come, we could share how, hey, it lowers your blood pressure being around the horses. And see how that horse over there is in that doing that gesture. That means the horse would like you to pet them. And where you stand, where you don't stand, how you feed the horse and how you don't feed the horse. Those are all things you learn really in about 15 minutes or less. So that's something that where you can add value right away by teaching that to your volunteers. So then when you have newcomers, then they can mentor and help them with those simple tasks. But then those people who did step 1, they would be great candidates to move on to step 2. The step 2 of the 5 steps to success would be really basic, behind the scenes, low pressure task. So you're doing a task that you don't have any pressure because you don't have any clients or even horses that you have to work with. It's like behind the scenes. So it can be things like creating a flyer or helping with email, helping with sorting, helping with supplies, helping fill up the water containers for the horses, things that are easy to learn and very low pressure. So they're feeling good because they're adding value to your nonprofit, but they're not yet getting pressure. So that's really good. It's the whole goal of the 5 steps is a way to help people who feel a little bit insecure about going to that next step. So it's to make it super easy to grow at their own pace and then help your nonprofit at their own pace. So like I said, step 1, they're getting acclimated, and you can stay there as long as you want. Then once they're comfortable with step 2, they can either, continue there and keep doing tasks if they want to do that, or they can move on to step 3. Step 3 is when you're facing either the client, or in this case, it could be facing the horses, working directly with the horses. So it's more hands-on. And so by getting more comfortable where they're in step 2, it makes step 3 much more easier because they already have the confidence, and now they're doing that same task, but they're doing it in front of a client, or they're working with a horse. So for example, in step 2, you may be creating you may be filling up the water, right? Because you're filling up the water buckets. And then step 3, you're bringing the water buckets to the horses and they're drinking the water. So it's just a gradual transition to make sure it's a comfortable growing, whether it's career development or volunteer development, making sure it's comfortable. Now, what's interesting with step 3 is it's not for everyone. What I have found with nonprofits, and this is really important to know and to realize, it's because a lot of nonprofits, they have people who work in step 2 type tasks like administration, purchasing, finance, accounting, those behind the scene tasks. And a lot of times people are there because they have a passion for the cause, but they just don't feel like they're the right fit to work with the people out there who are like children and families who have been traumatized, something like that. I've actually seen where when I go in to help a client with productivity or things like that, they sometimes will have an employee who has high absenteeism or something like that. And it often is because that employee started in step 2 and that's where they wanted to be. They had a job in step 2 where it was behind the scenes. But the nonprofit would sometimes, if there was like short staffed or a crisis, something like that, that employee, they would say, oh, come and help us with a step 3 task, which was client facing. And literally sometimes the employees would have panic attacks or literally make them sick because they could not handle that type of task. Because in some cases it caused them trauma themselves. You can call it a stressor. Trigger is a word as well. They're kind of changing that word to be stressor these days, although I do think trigger can be more accurate in some cases. But with step 3, you're basically working with the animals or with the clients. It sounds kind of funny when we say it that way, but working with the clients who you can work with. They can be working with other volunteers, or they can say, no, I just want to work with horses. So it might be like in the equine therapy, sometimes people work behind the scenes where they're braiding the horse's mane or something like that. So there's all kinds of things that they can do working directly with the horses with the step 3. So all those volunteer activities, they're going to save time for the nonprofit and add value because they're helping with activities. And it's adding so much value for the volunteer. In this case, they're literally lowering their blood pressure. They're having a great day out on the ranch. It's just a great experience for them. But it's a win-win for everyone. Win-win-win, because it's also a win for the horses. Step 4, that's where this is really when you start developing leadership type skills. And like I said, if with the step 3 in the business world, I've never really had someone have to skip step 3. It's a great experience. They get to learn things like that. But in the nonprofit world, like I said, you want to be careful because sometimes people are not comfortable with being out in the public or being out at the client site or being out on the ranch. They're not comfortable with that. So you just got to be aware of the step 3. And then with step 4 of the 5 steps to success. So with step 4, you're getting into where you're giving them an opportunity to lead something, to be a coordinator of an activity. So it could be something simple, like a volunteer. You notice that a volunteer loves feeding the horses and they're really great at it. They just develop that great rapport and it's just very, very clear. The horses love working with, when they love having them feed them because it's just, they just do such a great job and they enjoy it so much and the horse realizes that. So that may be an option to say to that volunteer, hey, what do you think about going to step 4 where you help someone else feed a horse? Maybe start out with just one person, one guest that comes here, one other volunteer. You help them and teach them what you've learned. Or you help them document, create a little steps to feed a horse and what things to be aware of. If you can't have them take a nibble out of your finger if you do it the wrong way. So they can show how to do that. And then, or they could even stay in step 4 and say, wow, I really love this. I love helping others. So they may end up and they say, you know what if you have a little class and you can set a limit where it's up to whatever number of people you're comfortable with. Maybe it's 3, 5, and say, we offer limited seats to people who want to learn, and experience feeding the horses and being part of that. So that would be step 4. You're getting involved and coordinating. And a lot of times that's a great way for people to learn for leadership. And then if you have students, these are things that they can add to their profile, their resume, their credentials. Even like a college student, they can put on there that they developed a program to help a nonprofit where it's feeding the horses. So an example is that could also be a cost savings opportunity. So let's say they went on to do they went on the step 5, and then step 5 to the 5 steps to success is where you partner to come up with a better way together, any goal, and there's no limits on it. So looking at that feeding the horse carrots example, right? So step 5 could be that you could do a couple different things. It could be that you talk to the, let's say you talk to the veterans program. You heard that they've got a lot of people who want to, step out and go over to the horse ranch, but they don't have transportation. So one way to do step 5 would be you work with a transportation company and figure out how could you get transportation from point A to point B. You figure something like that out. That would be a way to enhance the goal. So maybe you work out where it's once a month or twice a year or whatever it is, that you have a bus that goes from a certain location to, that you work out the bus route that goes from point A to point B, from like the community center where the veterans meet to the equine therapy center. So that would be an example of step 5. You're creating great value. It's a great thing for you. It's a great thing for the nonprofit, the equine therapy. And again, everyone wins. Win, win, win. Because like I said, the horses win too, when they get some of those great carrots and the wonderful people wanting to feed them. So that's an example there. Another example is it can be where you develop a program where if people can bring a carrot day or something. Now that's going to help. It's very expensive taking care of, nonprofits, as we know, it's very expensive. So that can be something that can help save costs as well. There's just infinite ways to come up with win-win-win situations.